So this is my short video essay on how you've become an emotional hoarder like me and how I personally got out of it. So I just want to take a moment to tell you all about my upbringing, and for whoever wants to know how my toxic parents or how your toxic parents can ruin your life. This is going to be a little bit of an expose, so I wouldn't be surprised if my my parents stopped talking to me after this. I was raised by a parent who was the child of actual Nazis from World War II. Half their family believed in Adolf Hitler, who promised to make his country great again, and half of the family didn't. This parent escaped to America and became very accomplished. And though the cost to our family was heavy, it included divorce and some near-death experiences and lots of pain and anguish, this parent eventually succeeded and became very wealthy. The cost to our family was a divorce and quite a bit of pain and humiliation in my life. My other parent was also deeply affected and apparently tried to unalive themselves during my early childhood. I don't know, because I have literally no memories of being a child, pretty much. I may have been abused during this time in various ways, though I don't remember much, so maybe that's a blessing in disguise. All I know is that my life is loaded with triggers I can't explain, and many things have and still do bring about violent emotional explosions in my life, and this has ruined many friendships and relationships over my 50 years. So I had to take a moment to breathe there. So you see, narcissistic parents know the value of success, what it takes to get there, but they often have failed to see, nor do they care about, the effects of their brutal actions on other people. As the child of such a tyrant, you usually have only the choice of keeping your head low and learning unhealthy behaviors to mitigate the rage fits and the dangerous circumstances that the kids get put through. Of course, a lot of this is caused by the unhealthy, feudalistic structure of society in which those who are wealthy steal everything for themselves and leave the rest of us having to pick up those pieces, the scraps. But I'll save my rant against capitalism for another day. Only narcissistic idiots think this is a good system. Anyway, I had a horrible upbringing for most of my formative years under an accomplished but very immoral parent, and a codependent one who was not there very often, mostly due to the divorce and how toxic the other one was. And I learned a lot of bad coping skills like keeping my mouth shut instead of expressing problems with the way things are being done. Skills like emotional violent outbursts or extreme withdrawal from life in order to get what I wanted, followed by a period of fake apologies and contrition, sometimes just to avoid what I knew would be an unpleasant or dangerous situation. Yeah, skills like mirroring a narcissist to get what you want instead of just asking for what you want, and manipulation. And someday I'll tell you about some other dangerous situations I got into, but I'm going to save that for another day, those stories. So how did I get out of this toxicity? I can't tell you how many cult-like organizations, how much dangerous angry driving, or how many dangerous friends or households I was subjected to as a kid. I'm not saying we were always poor or destitute, but we almost always lived like that. And my only escape was visiting the divorced other side of my family, which were much more normal in middle America. And I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that. One side is immigrants and the other side is longtime residents of the United States or whatever country. You can fill in your own country for your own situation if you're following along. It took a plane crash to bring about the divorce.
Above them, the private plane has collided with a Boeing 727, Pacific Southwest Airlines PSA Flight 182.
Did you see it over there? Come on, get in the car. I see it. Come on, take this.
At the moment of impact, NBC Channel 39 reporter John Britton and a few blocks away in the residential San Diego neighborhood.
Something started falling out of the sky. People started just like a comet coming down from the sky.
When I looked up, all I saw...
It took a plane crash to bring about the divorce, but then that's also a story for another day. The other choice of an unhealthy upbringing like that is, of course, to become a raging narcissistic jerk. Really, there's no difference to becoming narcissistic or codependent. The only noticeable thing between those two personality types is that as a narcissist, you don't care about anyone else's feelings. I'm no psychologist, but that may be where the genetic tendency to not have emotions, nor maybe shame, may come in. Anyway, I think as a kid, I unconsciously chose codependency instead of narcissism because I had a few good grandparents and a few friends who showed me the ill effects of the shamelessly toxic guardian of mine. As a side note, one time I counted the number of different places we moved and the number of schools I attended up to college, and I think we moved at least once every year. Boy, listen to that rain. Sometimes we lived out of a van or in really filthy conditions, although most of the time we could afford better than that. And I think at last count I went to about 13 different schools, and as you can imagine, it's really hard to make lifelong friend under circumstances like that. Might pause for a second, it's raining really hard. Rain's not going to stop. So see, I was attracted to many worse toxic people after I left my toxic home and went out on my own. So I started working at age 11, and I kept going for another 30 years after that. 30 plus. Mostly just so I could avoid going home to yet another horrible living situation or relationship. Of course, being ripped off multiple times by working for my family led me to the same situation over and over in my work life, until I finally stopped working for other people and became ruthless and cruel on my own. The lessons I'd learned from those horrible business people taught me how to legally steal and become rich, and I hated that. I gave a lot of that up about 14 years ago. Oh God, these rats are so distracting. Because I knew that the person I'd become was not me. I'd just done some work for Fox News, and yes, that Fox News. And although I made an astonishing amount of money in a very short time doing a little tech work, I knew that my work life was out of control. You know, I was really successful, but I hated what I was doing. So around 2011, I knew that working for people like that was bad news. I even did stuff for MTV. I worked for the U.S. government cybersecurity team, and I did some design work. Some of it won awards from people like Martha Stewart and other visionary people. And one of my book designs currently sells used on Amazon for $1,000 per copy for a hardback book. That's pretty good. So narcissist or codependent, either way, I didn't like the person I'd become. And for a while, I was even homeless because I refused to work for people for money anymore. I didn't even know what narcissism was until I'd gotten involved with a bunch more toxic people in my life. And so I had toxic people in my life, in work, religion, family, and culture. So nasty people exist in all sectors of your life. They hide in plain sight. They're ready to abuse and use the vulnerable. And if you're codependent and have addictions, or you're on the spectrum of being neurodivergent, or if you're just having a bad year, some predatory capitalist or crooked thief can take you and your possessions and your peace and leave you drained with nothing left but the tattered bits of a life and a personality left. Your family, friends, and business associates will steal from you, and they'll feel zero guilt about doing so and justify it by calling you crazy. And yeah, you'll feel crazy all right after dealing with those nasty motherfuckers calling themselves your parents. You know, mom, dad, lover, boss, partner, whatever they call themselves. Once you finally cut these nasty happiness and money thieves out of your life, you'll notice your life becomes a little better the longer you stay away from them. And people will call you crazy because it's easier to call a victim/survivor of such jerks crazy. It's easier to call someone crazy than to admit you've ripped them off and humiliated that person to their breaking point and beyond. It's easier to call someone crazy when you've victimized them. I can tell you after several traumatic brain injuries, having literally every penny stolen from me and winding up in jail for a month, that people feel zero guilt about destroying someone else's life in this fucked up capitalist society just for a little bit of your light, a little bit of your brilliance or your resources. That light is your happiness. Light is a term that people use on YouTube, but that light's your happiness, your wealth, your possessions. Sorry, gotta get these things out of my hair here. Your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your pets, your house. These people feel zero guilt, and they continue to feel zero guilt as they continue to sabotage you from behind the scenes, lobbing rocks at your life and from out of the trees behind you. So you have to leave these people behind all the time. You have to keep leaving them behind, not just once, but every time one of these giant gold-polished turds appear in your life. You can't put up with them no matter what position they claim in your life, whether they call themselves your lover or part of your family, whether a coworker, a boss, service provider, or a friend, best friend, whatever. You just got to cut them out. So I originally meant for my channel to be about my graphics projects, my experiments in digital art, AI, 3D, stuff I've been working on for 44 out of my 50 years, and maybe a little bit of drama and comedy, even some erotica that I've worked on. But instead, it's come to be about the damage done to my life by others and by myself due to abuse and other circumstances that I couldn't possibly have seen coming. When I was sitting in my jail cell on October 7th of last year, I thought about what had led me there to those cold bare walls, shivering in an orange paper suit, no idea how long I'd be there, wondering at the circumstances that brought me to that horrible place. I thought about the stolen inheritance that should have been able to bail me out of that situation. Thought about my toxic parents that took no action and went traveling around the world while I suffered even more abuse and yet another traumatic brain injury with no medical attention. I thought about what I'd done and why. I thought about my rages, my addictions, my bad choices in lovers and friends, and how often I stopped thinking and did things because I felt like I had no other choice. I've been backed into corners over and over to escape quite often, and I didn't know what to do to get out of the range of yet another idiot's rage or a bully determined to end my life or attack me because I was convenient, So whoever you are, if you're still watching me rant and ramble about all this, I want you to take away one lesson, and one lesson only. This society is profoundly sick, and you should not blame yourself for making sacrifices to get yourself away from sick people. Work situations, housing situations, cultures, places, religions, relationships, or whatever to preserve your health. Get out now and don't ever look back, okay? Good friend once reminded me of this quote. I think it's by the son of Krishnamurti, who was a famous guru of some kind. I don't really know the person, but it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So this is me saying over and out. May the forces of universe, whatever you believe in, bless you and give you the courage to stand up for yourself. Kick those narcissistic jerks out your door, even if they're in your church. For heaven's sake, don't ever let them back in or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I know I will. I'm not saying people can't change. Sometimes by some miracle they can. But I can tell you the list of people I'm not ever letting back in grows and grows. And don't worry. The more trash you take out, the more good stuff can come in. Don't become a hoarder like me.